And she looks at me and she's like, what do you mean your husband's right there? And I'm like, no, I'm here to pick up my husband. She takes a picture of my license plate and she's like, ma'am, you have 5 seconds or you're going to get a ticket.
Hey there, this is Unburdened by Hope, the podcast that helps you harness your possibility and fuel your purpose. I'm your host, Erin Cummings. Here we're breaking free from the chains of hope and unlocking the power of inspiration within. Get ready to ignite your soul because we're diving deep into the art of letting go, embracing the unknown, and creating a life unburdened by the limitations of hope. Together, we'll uncover the secrets to finding purpose, fueling our passions, and crafting a vibrant existence that sets our hearts on fire. So, are you ready to burn down what's no longer serving you and step into a life driven by possibility? Let's dive in, my friends, and unleash our boundless potential.
I totally just busted my kid eating a ton of candy in the pantry. It's awesome. Welcome to this week's podcast. I think this is the week of Thanksgiving. Is it? It is. I'm obviously recording ahead of time, but wow. I won't lie, Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays. It has become just one of the most fun family traditions. It took a lot to get here, y'all. I want to talk about being grateful, but I'm gonna do maybe like a two-parter. So you're gonna get being grateful for being grateful for getting lucky. You can take that as what you want. I'm going to tell a story, as you know. And then next week, we will do like a grateful for failures. I love Thanksgiving now. I used to hate it and now I love it. And I think I love it because we've truly been able to create the Thanksgiving holiday that we really want, which is now the celebration includes my husband's brother, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, their daughter. They come every year for Thanksgiving for the week, and we have such a good time. Like, we have such a good time. I think it's because we also all have like this really awesome relationship where we're all really good friends. Me and my husband's brother, we love to argue with each other. It's like our love language. So that's also really fun. If someone can like stand toe to toe with me, I do really enjoy that. Like, my humor and my love language is, can be spicy. And so if someone can be spicy back to me, like, that is like that's family right there. So yeah, we have such a great time. It took a lot to get here. Obviously we used to do a big blowout family thing, and just with the chaos of life and me putting some boundaries up around certain family members and me disassociating from certain family members, Thanksgiving used to be really hard, and now it's honestly really easy. We created the Thanksgiving that we want. I read this book a few years ago. It's called called The Art of Gathering, and it's all about like intentional, purposeful gathering time, not just like, it can be for like business meetings, but also like with your family, with your friends, like having a purpose to the gather instead of just like, oh, let's just all get together. And so kind of incorporating a few of those things into our time as a family together during Thanksgiving. It's been really fun. So now we have, like, my dad still comes, and then we have a set of friends that always join us like post meal. My dad leaves, and then the fun starts. My poor dad, not really. Anyway, I wanted to specifically talk this week about being grateful for times in which you just get lucky, because I feel like no one ever really talks about, like, obviously you're grateful for it, but I think there's so many times in our lives where like something good just happens, or something like out of the blue lucky just happens, and you have this moment of like, oh my God, it worked. And sometimes it's usually in those moments of things being a little crazy that you kind of forget to like be grateful. My husband's going to absolutely not die, but he'll be like so upset that like I think tell this story. I don't know. Maybe not. I love to embarrass him, so we'll see what happens. But he doesn't really listen to this podcast anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But So I am known to get a little riled up easily. Like I'm known to get riled up pretty easily if you haven't figured that out with the podcast. A while ago, like maybe months ago, I had taken him to the airport, and for some reason I was picking him up, and this is not something that I usually do. Like I am not the partner or the friend or the person that like really enjoys an airport pickup situation. Like you have to be very special, and my husband doesn't fit those categories. Mostly because like for business trips and stuff, like his company pays for him to like have a car, like a service take him. So like it's not necessary for me to do that. And like it's normally at random hours in which I am unable. But for some reason this day, I was able to pick him up from the airport. I think it was like a weekend. He's at a different terminal in which I normally would pick him up. And like we travel a lot, so I'm pretty I feel like I know my way around the Houston Intercontinental Airport. And so like especially as far as like parking, pickup, arrival, drop off within the airport, outside of the airport, I feel like I have a little bit of an understanding of what's going on. And it's also like totally under construction. And so I think that's a big thing too, is like since it's under construction, if you are really unfamiliar with the airport, it can be a disaster. So I'm like picking him up from the airport, and I'm there a little early, or he's landed a little early, and I'm also there a little early. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect timing. I won't need to like, wait in the cell phone lot. Like I can just go and pick him up. So I'm at one of the terminals that we don't really go to very much. And so this specific terminal, I was like a little unfamiliar with like how their arrival situation was. So at the other airports that we frequent, it's if it's a large airport, we are normally like renting a car, and so we don't do the whole pickup thing. And then the other airports are like the smaller airports, like in and out of Kansas, where there's just like you can pull over and wait and grab your person and then go. So we're at one of the smaller terminals in the Houston airport. Because you're technically not allowed to stop and wait for your person to arrive. Like your person, if you're stopping at the arrival to pick up your person, it's because your person is like within sight of you. It's not, you aren't technically allowed to like put your car in park and wait. You can get a ticket. And so I was like obviously going to cheat the system, because that's what I always like to find a loophole or push the boundary. Because why not? So I'm like sitting in the car, I have our two kids with us, and I'm like sitting there, and I purposely choose the very long line of cars that's like all the way backed up. I'm like the person that everyone's looking at, like, of all the places you picked the longest line. Yeah, I don't want to loop around again and drive through construction, because I know at this point my husband is on the way off of the plane. Like they had landed and he's getting off of the plane, but he still has to walk like from the actual plane to where the car is, which like it's gonna be a minute. So I'm like millimeter in the car, creeping forward, like barely creeping forward, creeping forward, creeping forward. And I'm like, okay, I'm now starting to get a little panicky. And I'm like texting him, like, you need to hurry. Like I made it this whole way here. It became his problem and no longer mine. You need to hurry, run. You need to run from the plane to the car, because I can't wait for you any longer. I mean, I could have just circled back around and he could have taken his time, but obviously that's not what I needed. I needed to prove the system wrong. So like he's walking quickly. I've now crept forward. So when I originally started in line, there was probably like, I don't know. I would have to say 15 cars deep. And now I'm at like car 4 deep. And it's like I've passed the main entrance. So I cannot see anymore that he's there. And now I'm like literally hoping. I'm like, hoping he just shows up. And the lady, I'm like also watching this lady behind me. And because of this rule that your person has to be there, she did the same thing I did. She was like, I'm going to beat the system. She pulled her car behind mine. And there was technically 2 of them in the car because at some point she had gotten out and the car was still moving, obviously. So there's obviously 2 of them, unless her car has like, it wasn't a Tesla. So I don't think it can drive itself. But, so she's like out of the car on the phone, like running around the front of the airport looking for her person, which also is, I'm not going to throw stones, but you can't do that either. So, but hey, no judgment. This is like, we're both in this together, right? So I am now, poor Kyle, I am now at the very front of the line, like no more cars ahead of me. The traffic person is signaling me to like continue, like, ma'am, you got to continue on. And I'm like waving my arms frantically, like, no, 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 no. My husband's right there. And she looks at me and she's like, what do you mean your husband's right there? And I'm like, no, I'm here to pick up my husband. And she's like, well, I don't see him. And I like look around. I'm like, well, you don't know what he looks like. I mean, like, okay, first of all, she doesn't know me. Do you like how like I'm clearly in the wrong and I'm like, no, ma'am, So she takes a picture of my license plate because she's obviously gonna write me a ticket because I'm not being cooperative. So she takes a picture of my car and my license tag, and she's like, ma'am, you have 5 seconds or you're gonna get a ticket. And I don't know how much the tickets are. And I'm like, telling her, I'm like, I just saw my husband. Okay, like hard stop. I didn't see my husband. I had no idea where he was. And I'm like, just like, trying to slow time down with my mind so that I didn't have to loop all the way around and do this all over again. Because now there really was a whole thing of cars. And so, like, I'm texting my husband as I'm like screaming at this poor lady who totally didn't need to be screamed at. But, I went straight into like very irritated that I was doing something incorrectly and it wasn't working out for me. So then she's like, I had told her that I had seen him walking up, which I didn't, but I said, and she's like, well, he was outside. And I said, no, I saw him inside walking, through baggage towards me. And she's like, well, he needs to be standing outside. And I said, well, he's outside now because I saw him. And by the time I scooted all the way up, he now doesn't know where my car is. And she's just staring at me like she knows that I'm lying. And I'm looking at her like very confidently, like I am lying and but we're going to pretend like I'm not. And so then this other parking traffic attendant, I don't know what they are, security gets in on it. And she's like, ma'am, you need to keep going. And I'm like, no, I saw my husband. He's right there. And lo and behold, like the Dead Sea parts in the center, out walks my husband between 2 vehicles with his eyes are like huge because I'm yelling at this poor traffic security person that I saw him, even though I didn't see him. But oh my God, I've never been so grateful to see him in my life than when I'm like, and there he was. And so then I look at the parking attendant, like this whole time she knew I was lying. Like, you know what I mean? Like she knew that I didn't know where he was and I was pushing the limits, and she knew that, right? And I knew she knew that. But then he like magically appeared out of thin air, like I don't know how. And I just like turned around really quickly and pointed at him, and I was like, see, there he is. And she was like, I swear to God, just like flabbergasted, as she and I both were, like, no lie. And so then I like got back in my car, and of course I was just like, see, there he is. He'd been waiting and he didn't know where I was, so he had to walk over here now. Oh my God. I seriously was so happy to just have Kyle. Like, I will never forget him just like coming through between those two cars, just showing up and me being like, oh my God, there he is. Because yeah, I like totally proved that lady wrong and right at the same exact time. So then as we were leaving, I did one of those like told you so things. I didn't actually say it to her, but I kind of like gave her, like that look. And then off we went. And then my husband's like, what are you doing? Why didn't you just circle back around? And I was like, well, obviously I was trying to prove a point. But anyway, so I don't know. I love that story because I was totally in the wrong. Totally. I was totally in the wrong. I should have just circled back around, and instead everything worked out. And I am very, very grateful for it. But I think sometimes it's funny to like have these stories come up, and like they're not failures and they're not, it's not bad, but it's kind of nice to have these like funny instances where like you get all worked up and something actually goes your way, and then you're like, oh, we got to pause for a moment and celebrate this win and be grateful for when the sea parts, and like, oh my God, there he is. See, I told you he's coming. But yeah, I think, especially coming up during this week when gratitude, we all sit around the table and sometimes we say what we're grateful for and all that kind of stuff. I'm always grateful for moments like this where like, what, the hoping actually did work out. Even though this podcast is all about, being unburdened and saying fuck hope, I do want to make sure that like sometimes hope, like I do want to make sure that sometimes hoping for things does work out. Like I don't know how I manifested my husband showing up in between those two vehicles, but like holy crap, it worked. I also think that like, to say like obviously the fuck hope moment in that situation would have been like me actually like having to put my tail between my legs and just either getting a ticket or circling all the way back around the airport. But like sometimes the next step doesn't come because what you hope for actually did happen. And we should celebrate those moments too. So I don't want to get a rap for like being the person that, doesn't, I don't hope for things, or I say fuck hope because nothing magical ever happens to me, when in reality stuff like this does. And one of the affirmations or one of the mantras sometimes I use like during my week, if I need to build like that confidence, if I'm like working on something, or if I need to like build the confidence to do something or execute a plan, is like I'll just say like, or I'll write in my notebook, like it all works out for me. Because you know what, even if the thing that you're hoping for doesn't work out, like whatever works out for you will. So I think that's a good reminder. And, to end this story is like, just to be grateful for how things worked out, which will lead us into next week's of, being grateful for failures too. But, this Thanksgiving, as you are hopefully surrounded by family or friends, or if you're not surrounded by family or friends, if you are celebrating Thanksgiving by yourself and you hate Thanksgiving because it's shitty and you just hope and you want it to change, I encourage you to be grateful for. I encourage you to find something to be grateful for, and then take an actionable change to make your next Thanksgiving different. And that might just mean that like you go, if you have the ability, like you take a solo vacation by yourself instead of like staying in your apartment, or maybe book a table at a restaurant that's open on Thanksgiving and take yourself out to dinner. Or, text some friends. Hey, what are you guys doing for Thanksgiving? Do you mind if I tag along? I think that's the thing is like the same thing with this story. It's like you might have to kind of lie to like get your gratitude going. You know what I mean? It's like I kind of had to lie and be like, no, he's standing right there. He's on his way. He saw me. Like, don't you know? Like he saw me driving. And so if you are wanting to spend Thanksgiving in a way that maybe you aren't able to, maybe it's about starting off with a little like, oh, hey, so-and-so, I was wondering like if I could tag along this Thanksgiving or seeing what you guys are doing and, can I join in or can I come over after your family leaves or, whatever, like if you want to spend it with some friends. I don't think that that's bad to like, create the Thanksgiving that you want. So, I kind of jumped around a little, but, yeah, this Thanksgiving, hope for what you hope for. Make sure that what you're hoping for is something that you actually want, and then take the actions to get there through gratitude and confidence. And if you're like me, maybe not a lot of grace. Stay courageous, capable, and strong. I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving. Reach out to me at on Instagram at Erin Runs an Empire, or you can email me at info@erincummings.com. I hope you have an amazing holiday, and I will talk to you on Monday.
Thanks for listening to Unburdened by Hope. Go to your favorite podcast app, hit that subscribe button, and leave us a review. If you've got something out of our show, I'd love to hear from you. Send me your favorite takeaway or any questions you may have to info@erincummings.com. You may even just hear the answer in a future episode. Remember, you are courageous, you are capable, you are strong. It's up to you to create what's possible.